Okay. Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. It's Selection Sunday in college basketball. It's Sunday evening. The seeds are just out, and we've got a brain trust. I think a brain trust is an appropriate term here. A brain trust of SBR contributors. You probably know their faces and their voices if you are a regular viewer of SBR Videos, and we're just going to give our initial thoughts on the matchups, the seedings, and everything for the national championship tournament here. I'm just looking at I didn't even know who made it and who's out, but the seedings have just come out, and we're going to discuss all this. Guys, thanks for being with us. Are you all excited for this?
Oh, so pumped. Let's do it.
Excellent. Okay, and of course, these guys are Megan Rochester, Jordan Sharp, and Dave Golikoff. All right, let's just start out basic issue, right? Who got screwed? And this actually does kind of matter because we've seen this before in previous years. You know, teams that have the label of quote-unquote they don't deserve to be there. Sometimes those are the teams, especially from a big conference, they're the teams of the 11 seed, the 12 seed that go all the way to the Elite Eight and the Final Four. In terms of seedings, who do you think made it into the tournament that's questionable? Dave Golikoff, we'll start with you.
All right, sounds good. Well, I have a good feeling. I know what Jordan's going to get into, so I'll leave the UCLA and Indiana for him. Two teams for me, just Xavier I think is a little high, just because of the run that they had in the tournament. So I would be wary of Xavier. I don't think they're going to be in this thing very long. The other thing is, you know, Dayton's a big conversation, of course. I think the thing with Dayton you have to keep an eye on is because of the seeding, because of what happened to them, they're going to be at home. I actually think they should have got a better seed. So they're in one of those bubble games, the play-in games. They're going to be at home playing Boise State. So I think that's, you know, if you're looking at betting in the coming days, I think Dayton's a good bet already.
Yeah, wow, Xavier a 6 seed. That is surprising. I'm just seeing this. Like I said, I haven't seen these. I didn't see the selection process, but Dayton as a 6 seed seems very high to me, right, Jordan?
Yeah, I agree, guys. Also, you know, Dave gave a little preview of it, but UCLA, I'm not sure, you know, if there's like a lifetime achievement award or something in the NCAA tournament, and that's an automatic bid these days. But apparently, that's what UCLA got in on this year, and it kind of hurt my Murray State Racers. I was kind of hopeful that they would have actually, you know, that they'd buck the trend here and get a little bit of love here for that 25-game winning streak and going undefeated in the OVC. But I'll save that preview for a little bit of small conference love later here. But yeah, I think that I also kind of think that I'll get into this team a little bit later too. But a little preview of that. Maryland, I think, is actually a little bit better than a 4 seed. I was a little bit surprised to see them that low, but that's what happens when you don't win your conference championship. You don't get that. You don't get the benefit of the doubt there. So that's kind of who I think didn't get exactly the best draw here.
All right, so you're thinking that UCLA maybe should have been left out in lieu of who? Who didn't make it? Because I didn't even see. Who are the bubble teams that got screwed?
Well, man, I will tell you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jordan.
No, go ahead. No, Megan, who?
All right, you know what? I am super pissed because Miami didn't make it in. You know, I didn't think they'd make it far, but they did beat Duke.
Yes.
And you know what? I just can't believe it. I can't believe they didn't get in. And Ole Miss came in instead of them. The best team that they beat this entire season was Arkansas.
All right. Yeah. I'm surprised. I'm just, like I said, I'm just seeing these for the first time. So Miami got left out over Indiana. Wow.
I can't believe that.
See, I would pick, if Miami and Indiana were going up head-to-head and the line was pick 'em, definitely I would pick Miami. They didn't just beat Duke. That wasn't just a fluke. They took Virginia to overtime, you know, and what else? I mean, you know, how much more do you want them to prove themselves? All right, so maybe Miami, Florida then might be a great bet in all of their games in the NIT. That might be something to look for. All right, and Ole Miss made it. And so are we thinking that maybe Ole Miss is one of those teams that people are going to put that label on, like didn't deserve to be there?
Oh, most definitely. I don't think they deserve to be there. The best team that they beat this season was Arkansas.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it, you know. All right, okay. So, and then what do we think about the number 1 seeds, Kentucky, Villanova, Duke, and Wisconsin? You know, can't really argue with that, right, right, Dave Golikoff?
Yeah, I mean, Kentucky is definitely the top dog. I think that was clear. That's been clear since Cauley Stein and the Harrisons decided to come back. Wisconsin, on the strength of the Big Ten win, they're there. Villanova has been unstoppable for months. I think if there's any question of the 4 number 1s, it's maybe a little bit with Duke. But other than that, I mean, they're all pretty solid.
Okay. All right. Wow. I still can't believe Miami didn't make it. Yeah, I am surprised by that. They were sort of a dark horse team every game that they were playing. All right. Are there any other bubble teams didn't make it that we want to talk about, or should we move on to futures?
I think Jordan mentioned Murray State, right?
Jordan, yeah, you want to talk about? See, I think my opinion is if Murray State played their whole season in one of the Big Six, would they really look as impressive as people are thinking about them right now? I don't think so.
I think you're wrong, Pete. They're the type of team
I
that
think
plays.
I'm right.
No, I mean they're the type of team that plays extremely well on defense and can score with the best of them and run with the best of them. I mean they're the type of team that is exciting to watch in these big tournaments. I'm not ignoring the fact that they play in the Ohio Valley Conference. Let's be honest, the committee is not going to look highly on that, even if they went undefeated in that conference. And they lost. They obviously didn't get their at-large bid, but they're a lot better, let's say, than they were 3 or 4 years ago when they made the tournament as a conference champion. They're the best they've been in a long time right now. I think it's a shame that the committee, they looked at like Megan said, Ole Miss, Indiana, UCLA. I mean, the big conferences, I believe, the big power conferences for football got most of the at-large bids. It's just a little bit depressing that the tournament, the committee seemed to be going one way. They kind of turned around, reverted, went right back to the old ways here this season. It's a little depressing to see.
Yeah.
I have a question I wanted
Go
to.
ahead.
I have a question that I wanted to throw out there. So Ole Miss loses 4 of 5, right? They're going to be the story going into this matchup with BYU. That's what they got to start with. What do you guys think of BYU, Ole Miss? BYU obviously won a bunch of games, lost to Gonzaga, easier conference. But Ole Miss, the story of that game is going to be that they aren't deserving of being there. But does that automatically mean that you bet BYU? Because that team's got some questions too.
Yeah, that's a tough one. BYU is a team that I wouldn't be too eager to bet against immediately. Mississippi, though, Ole Miss was 12-3-1 against the spread in all of their non-home games, and as we know in the conference tournament, that's a very telling stat. So I'll tell you right off the bat, there's no way I would bet on BYU in that one. For me, it's either going to be Ole Miss or pass. We'll see what the spread is when it comes out. Ole Miss also was pretty bad against the spread down the stretch, and they were losing games straight up as well. But there's no way I bet on BYU in that one. For me, it would either be Ole Miss or pass. You disagree with that? You think BYU is a sneaky sleeper team?
I don't know that they're a sleeper team. It's just, we're all piling on that Ole Miss doesn't even deserve to be here. So yeah. I'm surprised that all of a sudden that they don't deserve to be here. But now you're gonna, it's either them or nothing. It's a team that dropped 4 of 5 to end the year. Not a lot of momentum for them right now.
All right, so maybe is Ole Miss maybe the new Tennessee? I forgot what year it was that Tennessee made that great run when they were similarly, they had to go play in the first 4 or whatever it was. Is Ole Miss also from the SEC, similar type of team to Tennessee in terms of the program? Is Ole Miss maybe a team that we might want to look for to outperform their expectations?
Absolutely not for me.
No, really?
Megan? God, no.
Yeah. Does anyone think that Ole Miss might outperform their expectations? I mean, these are exactly the kinds of teams where people are crapping all over them when the tournament starts, and then they're the ones who make it shockingly to the Sweet 16 or maybe the Elite 8. And everyone no?
No way. I prefer teams with momentum going in, who deserving to be there. Those are the teams that I'd rather back to the Sweet 16. Okay, you mentioned Tennessee. But for every Tennessee, how many other teams that have dropped 4 or 5 going into the tournament that shouldn't be there, that are there, actually go to the Sweet 16?
Good point, Dave Golikoff. You got me on that one, I admit.
I like to
me on that one. Damn it, I got beat on that point. All right, let's talk about futures then. Let's talk about which teams might be, which of the top seeds, which of the upper seeds, let's say the top 3 seeds in these brackets might be due for an early exit. Just an open-ended question. We'll start with you, Jordan Sharp. Which of the top seeds, doesn't have to be the number 1 seed, which of the top seeds do you have maybe circled as maybe more likely than not to have an earlier than expected exit?
Yeah, if we're talking more outside the number 1 seed, just like 1s and 2s, I think you could look.
4s, yeah.
Yeah, I think you could kind of look at a team like Gonzaga potentially, but that side of the bracket, is debatable how good it is. I know Nova's been crazy good right now, but they also I think probably have a little bit tougher road to the tournament. I think I would say that I think. Obviously, I think Kentucky's obviously the strongest of the number 1 seeds. I think Wisconsin's, maybe arguably the second strongest. So if you're going to argue a number 1 seed that could go down before the Final Four, I think it's probably Nova or Duke for me right now.
Yeah, and Villanova is also, I mean, obviously a number one seed is obviously going to be great no matter what you're talking about. But they are a little bit of one of those live by the three, die by the three teams, and those teams are always vulnerable for an unexpected early exit for sure. All right, let's just discuss Kentucky here, because I'll tell you right now, there's no injuries on Kentucky. They're going to be my pick to win the whole thing in every bracket that I fill out. Is there any team that has a realistic chance of beating Kentucky, Dave Golikoff?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of teams that can do it. There's a couple of long shots that if everything goes right, they could also do it. I could see, like, I know this is going to sound crazy, I didn't do drugs, but like North Carolina, Texas, Michigan State, if those teams, like, if they catch lightning in a bottle, it's possible. But realistically, I think you're down to Arizona and Wisconsin. I think if you're being realistic, maybe Villanova in there as well. Villanova, as Jordan mentioned, may be a bit dubious because they haven't played so many good teams. But I think that's really what you're down to, Arizona and Wisconsin for me.
All right. So, but is there any way that you would not bet on Kentucky to at least win the Midwest, Jordan Sharp?
No, absolutely not. I will say, though, that if it comes down to the Sweet 16 between Maryland and Kentucky, I think Maryland could give them some trouble. I don't think they're going to win, but Maryland does. They have a pretty good team. I'm a little biased because I'm about 20 minutes down the road from them, but I do think at least give them a struggle. I don't think Kentucky's going to beat them by double digits at all. But yeah, I mean, Wisconsin, you know, in a Final Four matchup, you know, potentially, I think that could be a huge game as well. But Kentucky's just so good right now. They're so deep, and they're on such a run right now that it's going to be really tough to bet against them. I think if you're going to bet against Kentucky, you better hedge a lot with some Kentucky to win it all as well. If you're going to do that any time before the Final Four.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, looking at these number one seeds, they're all looking pretty freaking strong. But as we know, you know, it's not usually the case that all four number one seeds make the Final Four. Which of these number one seeds do we think is most vulnerable to not make the Final Four? Anyone chime in? Whoever has a thought on that.
I think it's Duke.
You think so? Tell us why.
Duke's young. Duke's already messed up plenty of times this season to show us that they could potentially not be capable of keeping up with the big dogs.
Yeah.
Granted, they were in a really, really, really tough conference. I love the ACC this season. I think they're awesome, but I just don't think Duke's got it. I think they might even be out before the Final Four.
Yeah, you know, you might actually be right there. I mean, not only did they lose to Miami, but you know, at the end of the season they struggled a little bit against Virginia Tech. Now maybe they were, you know, taking that, maybe they were looking ahead, maybe it was a look ahead spot for them. But you know, Miami wasn't the only time that they got beat or that they looked vulnerable. So you might be right. And I'll tell you what, I forgot which one of you guys said that you were a little bit down on Gonzaga. I'm kind of up on Gonzaga actually. I think they've got you know, they've got a lot of depth, and they've got a complete team, a balanced team. They've got big men. Maybe if Gonzaga and Duke match up, at the very least, we want to bet Gonzaga on the spread, or do you think that's maybe a foolish thing to do? What do you guys think, Dave Golikoff?
I would add to Megan's point that Duke is outside of top 50 for adjusted defense, so they're they've got some issues at the defensive end as well. Gonzaga is, I mean, I'm not sold on Gonzaga myself. I think that's going to be a popular thing to say. I think Iowa State is my pick to come out of the bottom of the South region. I just really like how they're playing. I know it's kind of a two-sided argument when you see Iowa State coming from behind in all these games. You could easily say, well, hey, they dug big holes, but they came out of big holes. I think they're comfortable if they play from behind. They can score. They can run. I don't think many teams can run with them. So I would say Iowa State is my pick to come out of that region, and therefore I don't like Gonzaga, I don't like Duke, and those would be a couple of my upsets.
Really? Look, in my preview of the Big 12 conference tournament, I picked Iowa State at 4-1 to win, but that was primarily because I thought that Kansas was a very overvalued favorite. Here, though, you know, they might be able to play well in stretches against Gonzaga and Duke, but you think they'll really be able to outplay them? They're likely to outplay them and actually win the game? I'm not exactly sure about that. I mean, like you said, you know, their propensity to fall behind is something that's tough to do when you're playing a truly elite team, which I don't really think Kansas is, or the other teams they came behind from in the conference tournament.
Kansas. I was saying Iowa State, but
right. No, but I'm saying that the reason that I liked Iowa State in the conference tournament was because I was not sold on Kansas at all, right. And I think the fact they were able to come back against Kansas and the other team, I think it was Texas that they came back against, speaks more to the weaknesses of those teams. You know.
Yeah. I agree with you. I look at Gonzaga, and it's tough for me to buy into them. Take a look at who they've played. You know, who have they played? Have they played any top 20 teams?
I can tell you right now, they
lost the only game that they played against the top.
They went into Arizona and went on the road and went to overtime. Yeah, they lost that one, but they went on the road into Arizona, a legit elite team, and took them to overtime. Dave Golikoff.
No, I know, but they didn't win. I mean,
but they took them to overtime.
Close only counts with what is it? Hand grenades and horseshoes.
I think if we're analyzing future success, close counts a lot.
Listen. My personal opinion of Gonzaga, not very strong. This is a team that has been ripe for upsets in previous tournaments. We've seen them come in strong. We've seen them come in with high momentum, lots of momentum, and fall short. So I'm not sold on them. I don't think they've played enough good. They've played some good teams, but they haven't won enough good games. So I'm not on Gonzaga here. I'm on Iowa State.
All right, Jordan Sharp. You don't think we can look at Gonzaga and say, wow, that road team, that road overtime game at Arizona is really impressive and really telling that this team is a team you definitely don't want to be betting against when they're going up against elite competition? Arizona on the road, Jordan Sharp.
Okay, if you're going, that's fine. If you're going with brownie points, I'll give them brownie points. But Dave's right. A win is a win, and they didn't get one. And I also, if I'm going to break the tie between this Iowa State Gonzaga thing, I'm firmly on Iowa State.
Really?
I picked them. I was gonna say that I wouldn't go as far as say that I'm gonna pick them to win the South. But I will say that I think that in a Sweet 16 matchup in Gonzaga, I think they would win. That this team's powerful, and they play in a much better conference and had a very, very good record this season. You know, they are the type of team, and they were my pick as well. But the question I believe was that we had earlier. You know, which team outside the top two do you think could make a deep run of the tournament? Mm-hmm. I think they could possibly get to the Elite Eight. I don't know about Final Four. But maybe it's possible if you guys are as low on Duke and at least Dave on Gonzaga, then they could legitimately make it to the Final Four. I think that's potential. I think here.
All right. Well, clearly the South is shaping up to be one of the wide open brackets here, and I think the Midwest. You have Kentucky, and then I think that the jump down to Kansas at number 2. That's an enormous jump. I mean, is Kansas the weakest 2 seed? I think so.
Yeah, I think Kansas. This is, again, a stretch. I've not done any Molly before this video, but I mean, it's entirely possible that Kansas gets pushed in their opening round game. I know it might sound a little bit crazy, but if they're not fully healthy, if Cliff Alexander's not fully healthy, I mean, is it that crazy to think that New Mexico State could push them a little bit? I mean, New Mexico State, I actually think, is maybe one of those teams that's underrated. Mm-hmm. They played a big chunk of the season without a couple of their key players. So maybe, just maybe, but I mean, on the spread for sure, in my opinion. And if Kansas is not healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if this was one of the opening round stunners.
All right, well, let's move on to the West then. Wisconsin, Arizona. It's a little bit tough to get a good. Arizona looked damn impressive down the stretch of the regular season and in the Pac-12 conference tournament. Right, they had a great record against the spread at the end of the regular season, and then some people were thinking that maybe Oregon would be a good pick to upset in the Pac-12 conference tournament, and those people were all right up until the final game, and Oregon got absolutely blown out. Is Arizona maybe a good pick to give Wisconsin an early exit?
If you're asking me, I will go first. Yeah, they're one of my final 4 picks. I just think this is a team that's playing their best basketball of the season right now. I think last year was a disappointment for them. That's strong in their minds. Ashley's playing fantastic. I love teams that are strong. I think they're a little bit, not underseeded, but I think all year, or at least down the stretch, they were thinking they might be a number 1 seed, maybe deservedly a number 2. But I think in their minds, it's a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They remember last year playing their best ball of the year. Pete, I know you like your Ole Misses, at least 4 or 5, and kind of slump into the tournament. I'm the opposite. I like Arizona. They're on a roll, and I think that they can beat Wisconsin. I also don't think they're going to be challenged up until, I'll tell you right now, I don't think they're going to be challenged in the first round, second round, up until maybe Baylor. I don't think they're really going to be challenged that much.
Right. I mean, for my eye, the drop down to Baylor at the 3 seed, that's a big drop. But then the 4 and 5 seeds, North Carolina and Arkansas, those are kind of teams that, like, at times looked borderline elite, and then at other times look at they were a notch below what you might expect for them from other years. I'm not exactly sure what to expect from North Carolina or Arkansas. Would not at all be surprised if they got an early exit. Would also not be surprised if they surprised everyone and made it to the Elite Eight, maybe even the Final Four. Do you have any read on either of those teams, Jordan Sharp, or are you still going to do some more research to figure out about North Carolina or Arkansas?
In this West, I think that Arkansas, you're right, is intriguing a little bit. Wisconsin or Arizona side to lose.
Okay. We're back. Jordan, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we're having some connection problems with you. Yeah, repeat that. Do you have anything to say about North Carolina or Arkansas? Just repeat it. We lost what you had to say.
Yeah, sorry guys. I do think Arkansas is a bit intriguing. They are the type of team that has looked pretty good at times this year. But I was just going to say that I think you guys are dead on. This is Arizona or Wisconsin's side of the bracket to lose. Mm-hmm. I think if you're going to bet on a 1-2 combo getting to the Elite Eight in any side of the bracket, I think that's definitely your bet right there. Is to see Wisconsin and Arizona face off in the Elite Eight. I think like I said, Arkansas is interesting, but those two teams just seem way too poised to get to a face off against one another to get to the Final Four.
All right, now let's quickly talk about the East, and this is interesting because the East, of course, Villanova's the top seed, dominant team. They do have, like I said, a little bit. They're quite reliant on the 3. I wouldn't say overly reliant, but they're heavily reliant on the 3. And then the second seed is Virginia. Now, for most of the year, Virginia was looking like a good candidate to be a number 1 seed. Then they had that, the injury to Anderson, which definitely hurt them. At times, though, Virginia really looked like a scary, dominant team. And there was one game where, the road game against Wake Forest, when they didn't have Anderson and they really turned up, they blew out Wake Forest on the road by like 40 or 50 points. And Virginia's looking like one of those teams that could maybe be super elite or might be just like on the lower tier of the elite rung. Anderson's back now, but he is he was out for about 8 games or so, and is he going to be at full strength, at full speed for this tournament? I think we can assume yes, but obviously Virginia very, very strong on defense. That's their calling card. What's your take on Virginia in general? Jordan Sharp, do you have anything to say about Virginia noteworthy?
I really, really like Virginia. Mm-hmm. I think that I think of maybe of all the number 2 seeds, they're by far the strongest. I would argue. Mm-hmm. I don't know. You guys seem to like Arizona a lot, but I really like Virginia this year for some reason. I think it's more so just that I've seen them play a little bit more than a lot of the other teams here in these 2 seeds. I'm being on the East Coast. I don't get to see Arizona play a whole lot. But, the Cavaliers, man, they do look really dominant. I think if it came down to it, I think it could beat Nova in an Elite Eight matchup if it came down to that. I think. What do you guys think? Do you think they'd be favored in that matchup? Either am I just overly high on the Cavaliers right now?
No, but I'm looking at them. Look, after Belmont, assuming they get past Belmont, then they'll have Michigan State coming up next. I mean, that's a tough assignment for a second game. Tom Izzo, whatever Michigan State does in the regular season, Michigan State is always a tough team in the postseason, always outperforming however they were in the regular season. Sure, they could make the Final Four. They could also be out in the round of 32 by Michigan State, right? So I'm not sure if I'd want to bet Virginia on futures to make even the Sweet 16. What do you think?
But don't lean on Oklahoma here. I mean, Oklahoma could be a really, really strong team for them to come up against next after Michigan State, as you said, Pete.
Yeah.
They're a stacked team. I think people are really overlooking them. They knocked out Kansas. They're overall great team. We could be looking at them as, like, they could sneak into the Final Four here. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I completely agree with that. I mean, as awesome as Virginia, I think, legitimately is and has looked, they look like they've got one of the toughest roads to the Sweet 16 out of anyone. And as great as they are, I think maybe they wouldn't be a good bet on a futures bet to get to the Sweet 16 or to the Elite Eight. You agree with that, Dave Golikoff? That's how we're all seeming to feel right now.
Well, I actually do like Michigan State in the second round. Mm-hmm. I mentioned earlier some of the when we're looking at long shots, Michigan State, Texas, North Carolina could be good. I think Michigan State is the soundest of the bunch just because of the coaching. But to answer Jordan's question, I think if Virginia does get past all of this and does get to Villanova, I think that's a nightmare matchup for Villanova.
Right.
A team that can take away that 3 from them is going to be a problem. I just don't think Virginia goes there. I think the one thing that everyone forgets about Virginia is that their offense can disappear. and I think that's a problem come tournament time. You know, they might face a team that's as scrappy, as good defensively, but I just don't trust that offense, and it hasn't been the same as you mentioned since without the injury or with the injury. So I just hate betting teams to go far that have these offensive issues. That's that's my opinion.
I completely agree with you. And another team exactly like that, Louisville, in the fourth position, in the fourth seed in the East. That's another team that I would generally be looking to bet against in terms of spreads, and also expect more likely than not an early exit. So maybe for Virginia, the stupidest bet would be to bet on them on a futures bet to reach the Elite Eight. Maybe we think they're either going to be eliminated in the first two rounds, or in rounds 2 and 3, or if they get by those rounds, then they're probably going to the Final Four.
Yeah, I think we would agree that the East is the side of the bracket that is that equals death. I think that
death round for sure.
It seems to be the concurrence here between us all.
I mean, we haven't even talked about LSU, and they gave Kentucky a scare this season.
Sure, absolutely. LSU, there you go. LSU, the number 9 seed. Wow, I'm just seeing this right now, and they're playing NC State, and NC State is one of the teams that some people have already circled as a team that has elite talent. NC State's coach is a great recruiter, and they're another team that might outperform their expectations and their regular season results. Man, the East is one hell of a. I'm just seeing this now.
I would temper expectations here a little bit. I agree. NC State and LSU are both these two like boom or bust type teams, in my opinion. LSU could win by like 30, or they could lose by 30 in that opening. Both teams. I wouldn't be surprised. Right. Regardless, I don't think, this is just me again, I don't think either of those teams really hold a candle to Villanova in the second round.
Really? All right, I'm just looking at this. I mean, as I said again, I'm seeing these seedings for the first time. My God, the East, Virginia, Michigan State, Oklahoma, LSU, NC State, Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa is the 5th seed. We didn't even talk about them. They were killing it against the spread at the end of the year. Very, they won their conference tournament. Wow. So I think maybe we've identified it. Maybe Villanova is the number 1 seed, most likely to get eliminated before the Final Four. Do we agree with that?
I totally agree.
Yes, absolutely.
Even more so than Duke, Megan Rochester? ACC?
Absolutely more than Duke, for sure. Just because of the way the seedings have worked out.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I disagree. I completely disagree. I'll tell you why. I think all of the tougher teams are in the bottom half of that bracket. So Villanova, they're going to face either NC State or LSU. Right. I can't see NC State or LSU. Whoever wins the first round matchup winning 2 games in a row. I just can't see that. UNI, yes, but they're a little bit weak. Louisville, we just talked, is a little bit weak too. So they're only going to have to face one of those teams from the bottom part of the bracket. And I think as long as it's not Virginia, maybe Oklahoma, I think they're in pretty good shape.
Man, once again, Dave Golikoff with a great point, nailing me, man. But
I don't know. I mean, I think the top half of the bracket's pretty tough too. They're looking at Northern Iowa, right? And they're 14-2 on the road.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're awesome.
Pretty strong. I don't know. I think it's going to be a fight for them too. Villanova's going to have a tough time.
I hear. I think. His point is just that, maybe Virginia, Michigan State, and Oklahoma are all awesome teams, but Villanova's only going to have to beat one of them. So that's once again, Dave Golikoff got in this call. All right. Well. Interesting thoughts on futures and seeding, region seedings. We're going to cover this a lot more for the rest of this week. Now let's move on to some specific seeding trends, which Megan Rochester has done extensive research on. These trends are always very interesting to hear about and to be reminded of. We see them over and over again, year in and year out. Megan Rochester, what do you have for us in terms of notable seeding trends to be aware of?
All right, so we've already been talking about this NC State LSU matchup, so let's just jump into the 8 versus 9. Okay. Started off with the excitement. The win margin between these two seedings is plus 0.6 to the 8th seed. That means an average final score between these two seedings is 69.9 to 69.3.
Unreal.
That's wild. I mean, we've got some crazy matchups, I think, right here. Which one of these do you think it's going to come down to the final point, the final second, overtime? What are we looking at here?
Cincinnati, Purdue. First of all, Cincinnati plays low-scoring games. Purdue, when they do get involved when they do play another team that favors slow-paced, defense-oriented games, they can play very low-scoring games as well. I could see this one easily being like 54-53 with like 45 seconds to go. Cincinnati, Purdue. That's probably one where you might even want to consider one of the team that you like on a teaser, because that one has low scoring and close written all over it. Right, guys?
Yeah, I think you're right there. In terms of picking the actual game, I just throw out that Purdue, not very good away from home, 2-9 when facing when on the road facing top 100 teams in terms of RPI. So not a big fan there. I think Oklahoma State, Oregon is one that's going to be close as well. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, but if we're talking about close games, I think that's going to be a slugfest, two teams going up and down. Oklahoma State's got that great kid. What's his name? LeBryant Nash, I think. And Oregon's got Pac-12 Player of the Year. High-scoring game, close, entertaining. I think is the story of that one.
All right, so here's my thought. I'm going to disagree with you again, Dave Golikoff, but I always get burned when I disagree with you. But down the stretch of the regular season, Oregon was killing it, right? They were killing it against the spread. They were winning a lot of games straight up as an underdog. And, heading into the Pac-12 tournament, a lot of people were expecting them to do well. I was myself, and they did. They ran to a buzzsaw against Arizona, but before that, they were killing it just like everyone expected. Oklahoma State, kind of the opposite. They were a bad bet down the stretch. Now, the one difference that you can make, the argument that you can make, is that the Big 12 in general is just an awesome conference this year, very balanced. Every team was either good or great, and the Pac-12 not as tough, except for Arizona. Even Utah faded down the stretch. So do you think that maybe Oregon might be looking a little bit better here because they played in a much easier conference? So you obviously like Oklahoma State here, Dave, right?
No, I think Oregon wins. You know what? Maybe you convinced me. I think maybe I was a little bit off base. I was just the sexy matchup between those two players. But no, I would have to side with Oregon. I think pretty much everything that you said. I don't need to repeat it, but yeah. I think Oregon does get the edge because Oklahoma State is not a good rebounding team. The teams that Oregon struggles with tend to be like size, interior. As we saw against Arizona, I don't think Oklahoma State has that.
Exactly. I completely agree with you. Dave Golikoff. All right, Megan Rochester, seeding trends. More. What do you have for us?
All right, so let's move it over to the crazy 5 versus 12. Let's talk this over. Seriously. Yes. I mean, the straight-up record since 2001 when it started is 30-26. That's 53%.
Unreal.
I mean, this is pretty much 50-50 chance here on most of these teams. And 3 out of the 4 last year, though, they were 12 seeds moving on into the round of 32. So what do you guys think? Can we see the same sort of thing here? Also, you might want to note that the 5th seeds, they came 0-4 ATS last year.
Unreal. Yeah, I'll tell you what. And again, I'm seeing these seeds for the first time. The 5-12 seeds, the 5s are actually looking pretty strong. Northern Iowa, again, that is a tough team. Wyoming is pretty impressive. I'm not exactly sure what my take on Wyoming is right now. They look great in their conference tournament, very athletic team, but I wouldn't want to go against Northern Iowa, that's for sure. Utah going up against Stephen F. Austin. SF Austin has a history of playing these top teams well, and Utah, you really got to figure out, is Utah going to be the team that we saw for about 80% of the regular season, or are they going to be the team that we saw in the last 20% of the regular season? I don't know. West Virginia is very impressive, but that could be your upset right there. Buffalo, West Virginia, and Arkansas, Wofford. Actually, Megan, you know what? I think you're right. I think we might see 2 upsets here at least. These might be coin flips. That's my opinion. Let's see, Jordan Sharp. What's your take on the 5-12 matchups?
Oh, I think you have to look at the Lumberjacks, baby, for the upset in the 5-12. Stephen F. Austin, I think, is by far the best 12 seed, and I think they are going to give Utah a run for their money here in the first round. They're the type of team, I think, just can score with anybody, it seems like right now. Okay, they play in the Southland Conference. Let's just harp on the small conference just a little bit more here, but I think they have a really good chance of getting the win here in the first round.
The problem is just you have to look at Utah and say what happened to them, because for the first, like I said, 3/4 of the regular season, Utah was clearly undervalued. They were a great bet game in and game out, and they were one of those teams where, like, when they started to get good, they started to be a big favorite. You were like, all right, now are they getting overvalued? No, they started to blow people out. They were getting cover after cover after cover, but then at the end of the regular regular season, it's like they seem like maybe a head case team. And are they going to be able to reverse course here for the tournament? I'm just not exactly sure. Obviously, it's scary to bet on them in light of everything you just said, but it's also scary to bet against them considering how great they were for most of the regular season. Dave Golikoff, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I'm not a believer of Utah. I mean, going into the Pac-12 tournament, the other Coach K tore a strip off his team. He was just, he was all over them, trying to get them motivated to start playing like they did earlier, and it didn't work. I mean, that's the concern, is that when he's tearing his hair out and it's still not working. Like, remember, if I'm not mistaken, they were losing to Stanford before they had the big second half, and then they lost to Oregon as well. Not what they expected, not what he expected. So, not a big fan. I mean, I'm not going to echo a lot of the other good points that Jordan made, but Stephen F. Austin, I mean, they've been here before, knocked off VCU last year, team that forces a bunch of turnovers, dominates the paint. I think Utah could be going home.
All right, and then if Stephen F. Austin, gets by Utah, then they're going to be going up against either Georgetown or Eastern Washington, both very beatable teams. Maybe SF Austin is a candidate for a sleeper Sweet 16 pick. What do you think?
I think so. I'm not a big fan of Georgetown. That's one of my other upsets. Is I like Eastern Washington and give them a run for the money. So I would tend to agree there.
Maybe we've identified a futures bet here with value. Stephen F. Austin to make the Sweet 16, and then if they do make the Sweet 16, then Duke, Megan Rochester. Could Stephen F. Austin possibly be the team that beats Duke and makes it to the Final Eight, Elite Eight?
I don't know, man. I think it's crazy. I just don't have any faith in Duke right now.
You don't?
I don't. I think they're going to be out early. I really do. In my bracket, they're not making it past the Elite Eight.
She's a hater. So basically, yeah.
I'm a hater.
Yeah. Anyone. So you'd be auto-fading Duke on their spreads the whole tournament. Hey, that might be a smart thing to do. All right, and then what are the other 5-12s? Arkansas, Wofford. That's an interesting one. Wofford is, the always candidate to be a giant killer. And Arkansas, in the heart of the regular season, was looking dominant at times, and then they tailed off against the spread, still usually getting wins, but they were a good bet against. What kind of Arkansas team are we going to see here? Do you think Wofford? And then, again, if Wofford does beat Arkansas, then they go up against North Carolina or Harvard. Both those teams very beatable. What's your take on the Arkansas-Wofford matchup, Dave Golikoff?
I like Arkansas. I think 2 of these 5-12 matchups are mismatches in favor of the 5 seed, and the other 2 could be upsets. I think this one is a mismatch for the 5 seed. Wofford doesn't score particularly well, doesn't have a ton of size. Razorbacks playing pretty well. I would consider them one of the hotter teams in the country outside of the losses to Kentucky. I'm a big fan of Bobby Portis, and I think he might be he's as good up there. He's up there like with the Jahlil Okafors of the world in terms of what he means to his team. So I don't think Arkansas has too many problems in this spot.
All right, well, Jordan Sharp thinks Stephen F. Austin is the most likely upset in the 5-12 matchups. Dave Golikoff, if you had to pick one of these 5-12 matchups that's most likely for an upset, which would it be?
I like Buffalo here. Buffalo's a run-and-gun team. They went to Rupp Arena, gave Kentucky a run for their money. I think that was an overtime game. Pete, you love your overtime games. I mean, they didn't win, but they went to overtime.
I think they're very telling, and whenever I see something like that, I think, that's telling.
I think that, so Buffalo has no problem scoring. West Virginia is a wild card team. They don't shoot great. I think that this could be a problem for West Virginia here.
You know what, Megan Rochester? I think we might see 2 12 teams win straight up, and I'm thinking that out of the 4 games, I'm thinking maybe the 12 teams will cover at least 3 of those games. You might have given us a great reminder of seeding trends here. Do you have anything else for us?
All right, yeah, I have one more thing I want to throw at you guys really, really fast. The 6 versus 11. All right, so let's talk about this. Only 3 6s in the entire tournament since 2001 have made it into the Final Four. 3 teams, that's it. Now, with that being said, last year, a 7 seed won the championship, right?
Sure.
UConn came all the way from the 7th seed. So I'm thinking things are changing a little bit here. Do we see any of these teams possibly making it Elite 8, Final Four?
And you know what it could be? I just want to make one comment on that. I think there might be a psychological factor to these seeds, like I alluded to earlier, because maybe a team that's a 6 seed is a team that isn't that good by definition, but because they get a 6 seed, they feel like they've gotten respect. Maybe they take it a little bit easy, and they get an early exit. So there might actually be something to that. But let's discuss these 6 seeds. Dave Golikoff, what do you think? Is there any 6 seed that's interesting to you?
No, there aren't any 6 seeds that are interesting to me. Sorry to shut
Boring
that
6 seeds, okay.
so coldly, but no, Megan makes good points about the 7 seed winning last year, but I don't see any 6 seed going. Let's see. I mentioned Xavier. I think they're overseeded, overrated. Then we got SMU. I already said I like ISU. I like Iowa State to win in the South. Providence doesn't have a winning streak longer than 3 games since December, so we're asking them to go beyond that in the tournament. I don't see that happening, and I think Texas. I don't know. Maybe I've been smoking a little too much of Texas's weed, but
I thought you said you weren't doing any drugs, Dave Golikoff.
Yeah, come on, Dave.
I know. I'm
Yeah, Dave.
Are you high or are you not high, Dave Golikoff?
I don't know what I'm doing. But
we're taking bets. We're taking bets here.
Minus 200 on yes.
Is my stash showing here somewhere?
All right, well then let me ask you, because the lowest seed that's ever won the championship was number 8. And I'm wondering if any of these teams, 6, 7, 8, you think they're going to make it Final Four championship. I'd love to see it. I love when that happens.
Let's talk about that. Let's think about that. Just open-ended question. Are there any relatively low seeds, 7, 8, 9, 10, or that we think might have actually a better than expected chance to make the Final Four? We know they're going to be a long shot to make the Final Four, but maybe they're probably not going to happen. Maybe they have a better than expected chance. What do you think, Jordan Sharp? Do you have any opinions on that?
I have one team that I think that is 6, 7, or 8 that can win it all, and that's the Shockers, baby, Wichita State. Now they would have to go through Kentucky. They would have to go through Kentucky. Yes, okay, I get that. So maybe that dampens them just a little bit. But you guys, we're talking long shots now. I mean that's probably the one that they obviously have one of the tougher roads. The Midwest Division's pretty tough too. I think we obviously established the East is tough too. But yeah, I think I'm a big fan of the Shockers this year. Another team that not a lot of people know about, could also be undervalued as well. They've gotten their love obviously in the tournament the last couple of years. They've made their runs. They're not necessarily a Cinderella anymore, but they are a 7th seed. So I do think that they as we said, we saw the 7th seed win it all last.
I'll tell you what I think. I think I completely agree with you up until the Final Four, up until Kentucky. Wichita State might be a great bet to make the Elite 8. I love them against Indiana, and I love them against Kansas. I think both Indiana and Kansas are overvalued teams right now. Then they might have to face Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a tough team. They were a team that I thought might do well.
Ooh, I love them. Notre Dame is rocking right now.
That's going to be tough. Yeah, Notre Dame is a tough. They've got a great 4-guard set that's great for the tournament. They're tough defensively. They've got a lot of resilience here. But then again, they won the ACC tournament, and maybe that takes a little bit out of their motivation, out of their anger. So, and Wichita State is no slouch. So I completely agree with you, Jordan Sharp. Wichita State, looking at this bracket here, might be a good bet to get to the Elite 8. Will they beat Kentucky? No freaking way. You kidding me, Jordan Sharp? You kidding me? Answer that question.
Tough. Okay, obviously, but yeah. Okay. Any other 6, 7, 8 seeds you guys thinking of? I mean, I think Wichita State's one of the stronger of those kind of middle-seeded teams.
Agreed. If they were in any other conference, any other bracket, I might agree with you. If they were in the conference with Villanova as the 1 seed, Duke as the 1 seed, even Wisconsin as the 1 seed, sure. With Kentucky, they're not making the Final Four, Jordan Sharp.
But I do think they have a very easy road to the Elite 8. I'm not as high on Notre Dame. Obviously, I think Indiana's just trash.
Completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. Okay, Wichita State, possible value, futures bet to make the Elite 8. But the initial question was Final Four. Are there any lower seeds that might make the Final Four? Dave Golikoff, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've said it a few times. Michigan State, Texas. Yeah. I hate saying Texas over and over again because they're so tantalizing. It's like seeing a hot girl at the bar and you don't know what to go up to her and say or to pick her up. It's like
I hear you, dude. I hear you, bro.
It could work out, but Texas is just they have so much talent, but it just doesn't happen for them.
Right.
I think Michigan State is a team that, I mean, push comes to shove, Tom Izzo with a talented group. I know it hasn't been great this year, but You look at how they played in the tournament, in the conference tournament, Wisconsin to overtime. It's possible. They would be my pick.
Yeah, look, anytime you're making a recommendation on a bet on Michigan State in the postseason in any which way, I'm not going to disagree with it. Michigan State, obviously, Tom Izzo knows what to do in the postseason. All right, Megan, that's it for the seeding trends, right?
Absolutely. Let's move on.
All right, opening round matchups. We've discussed a lot of them already, so we can repeat some of the things that we said. Are there any opening round matchups that you think might have some value on their spreads? I can tell you right now. I'll start right now. I was going to fade Indiana no matter who they were playing. They're going up against Wichita State. That is fine with me. I don't know what that spread's going to be. Obviously, Wichita State, I'm assuming, will be, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 points.
-5.5.
They're -5.5?
Wichita State -5.5.
All right, that's a little bit.
According to sportsbookreview.com/betting odds, make sure everybody goes there and checks it out.
Yeah. All right. I was gonna say maybe 3.5 or 4, 5.5. Kind of getting up there, but I'd still take Wichita State -5.5 over Indiana +5.5. Dave Golikoff, identify a first-round matchup you think might have some value.
Let me just take a look. I love Northern Iowa. I know it's one of those dangerous 5-12 matchups, but I like to live dangerously. They're laying 7. I just think this is a perfect matchup for them. To me, they're a poor man's Virginia, Wisconsin type team. Shoots the ball pretty well, very sound. Wyoming has all sorts of problems on offense. Sometimes it looks like they're playing with just 4 men on the court. 62.2 points per game, and that's actually on 46% shooting on the year. They're shooting 46%, but still only scoring 62 points per game. I don't know what they're aiming for, but I like Northern Iowa in the first round.
No, I hear you. Northern Iowa dominated all comers in conference play, and they didn't really blow anyone out by more than 20 points, but they kind of beat everyone by between 12 and 15. And Wyoming might not bring more to the table, much more to the table than Evansville or some of those teams did that they saw during the regular season. All right, Jordan Sharp, do you have a first round matchup you want to discuss with us?
Yeah, first day of the tournament, one of the first games that tip off. I mean, right now, I think you're stealing money with SMU only -3 against UCLA right now. That just baffles me that they're that low. I figured they'd be at least a few points higher than that. I think Southern Methodist here, playing some pretty good basketball down the stretch. I think you could see them win that game pretty easily. On 3, 2.5, even you can look at it. Some books I think is pretty good value.
I hear SMU is a team that usually has a very good home court edge, and I've been loving to bet on them at home last year and this year, especially off a loss, especially off a home loss. On a neutral court, though, against a talented team like UCLA, I agree with you, though. 3 is not that many points. I'm not sure I want to take UCLA there, but betting on SMU as a favorite when they're not at home against a good team makes me a little bit nervous. All right, let's look at some of these other first-round matchups, and let me see if there's anything else. I was thinking about fading Louisville, similar to Indiana, just because they're one of those teams, as you alluded to earlier, Dave Golikoff, they have problems on offense, and in the tournament they're probably going to be a favorite. What's the line with Louisville and UC Irvine?
I was just looking at that. It's -8.5 for Louisville.
-8.5? Oh, Irvine +8.5, right? What do you think about that? Disagree? Louisville just doesn't have the offense, really, to get those kinds of margin wins reliably. UC Irvine, are they world beaters? Maybe not.
I'm not going to lie and tell you that I know a whole lot about UC Irvine. I could. But I don't know a whole lot about UC Irvine.
No, don't lie. Jordan Sharp, I know you don't know anything about UC Irvine. Do you want to lie and tell us that you do, or do you want to just not say anything about UC Irvine?
I definitely don't know a lot about UC Irvine living here on the East Coast. I will say this. I did look at that, and I have seen Louisville play a lot, that going to a school that was in Kentucky. And I will say that I did initially the 8.5 struck me as a little bit overvalued on them. I think. Also, we touched on it a little bit already, but Stephen F. Austin plus 6.5 against Utah in the first round. What do you guys think?
Yeah, what's the line on that one?
It's plus 6.5. Stephen F. Austin.
Listen, if Utah, I'm kind of with Dave Golikoff. I think Utah either covers that one or they lose outright. Or no, you were the one who said that. Yeah, I think that, if you think Utah is not going to be able to get it together, maybe Austin on the money line might even be a better bet. I think you might be right.
Yeah, you mean Stephen F. Austin either covers or wins outright.
No, that Utah either wins by like double digits or they lose outright. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, no, I'm going with momentum. I think they're a fading team right now. I kind of do like Stephen F. Austin. Some of the other ones I also like. I kind of like Eastern Washington against Georgetown. Maybe.
What's the line on that one?
That's 7.5, 8. I see it open at 8, down to 7.5 already.
Wow. Really? Okay, I'm gonna make a prediction right now. Both,
Let's do this. I'm gonna rub my hands together as you do this.
Both Eastern Washington and UC Irvine close at like 6.5, maybe 7, but more like 6.5. Those lines will get bet down for sure. They might even be at 6.5 by tomorrow morning.
I thought you were going to give us like something bigger than that.
That's huge, Dave Golikoff. If you can predict line movements, you can make money in this game, okay? It's not just about, predicting where the lines are going to go is half the battle here, Dave Golikoff.
All right, okay.
All right, now let me ask you guys, though,
Go for
because
it.
these lines tend to get really, really, really large with the 1 versus 16, 2 versus
Yes.
15.
Yes.
In the past, 2 versus 15, for example, let's start it there. They're 25 and 29 ATS. So they're actually under 50%.
That's a very good point, Megan Rochester. Which of the 2-15 matchups do we think might be a good candidate for an ATS cover by the 15 seed? What's the Virginia Belmont line? Because Virginia, sometimes
That's what I was just looking at.
if their offense goes away, low scoring game. What's the line for that one?
16.5. I was actually curious to know Jordan's opinion of that line because he's got a good read on Virginia. What do you
What's
think?
the line? What's the line?
Yeah, what is it again?
16.5.
Wow.
It's big.
Yeah, that initially does seem like a few points too high as well. I'm not, I think Virginia, they're the type of team that you're right is kind of inconsistent. Belmont, they play at a pretty fast pace, and they don't really struggle to score. Their shooting is pretty good too. So they could give them a little bit of trouble here, and 16.5 is pretty high. That does not give me much confidence if I was laying the points with Virginia. That's for sure.
I mean, that's where all those covers come from that Megan was alluding to before. It's these teams that look like they're outmatched, and they are, but not quite as outmatched as the spreads are giving them credit for. Kansas, New Mexico State. Kansas is a team that, if it's Kansas, Wichita State in the second round, I'll definitely be betting on Wichita State in that one. What's the line against New Mexico State, though, Dave?
11.5, and this is a line that I like the dog, but I would wait a little bit closer until game time to see it, to make sure the injuries are still a factor for Kansas.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you wait till game time, that one might go down to 9, and I could easily see that one close to get 9.5. But
well, here's a general question for you about line movements, because I think you have a huge split here when it comes to the tournament. You're going to have squares who come up to the window, or I guess online.
Right.
Kansas isn't going to lose, right?
Right.
And then you've got sharps who actually pay attention to this stuff, and and they leap on the 11.5 or jump on it. So I think you might not see as big of a line movement there with some of these. I think that's maybe the split that you're going to have. I guess my question is, what type of line movement do you think you're going to have on some of these lines when you have that split?
Yeah, I mean, if the line movement goes down for the New Mexico State game, for example, or even for the Irvine line, or for some of the others, for the Stephen F. Austin line, that's going to be because of sharp action. That's going to be because Billy Walters or the South African or the Russian or one of those guys or 2 or 3 of them came in on the underdog. That's not going to be because of public action for sure.
Mm-hmm. So you think? What about? I wanted to ask about this. I know changing the subject a bit, but UCLA. Sure. You know that public is going to be fading UCLA. It's already in the media. People who know basketball, don't know basketball, they're going to be fading UCLA. The one thing with SMU, I kind of do want to fade UCLA myself, but with SMU, they're kind of thrilled to be here, right? It's a team that got snubbed last year. They secured their berth by winning the tournament. What do you think of that public split there that against SMU there?
SMU is a very, very well-coached team. They might have a talent discrepancy when they go up against some of the elite teams. That line seems pretty dead on to me. There's nothing that I'm really feeling right now on that one. I wouldn't want to bet against SMU, I'll tell you that. And would I want to bet on them? I don't know about that one. That game, from a spread perspective, feeling like a pass to me. Jordan Sharp, do you have any opinion on UCLA?
I think I've already stated that I like SMU here, but I do think that it is a little fishy that they are only 2.5 to 3 point favorites. It just looks like it could be too good to be true, and you know what that sometimes means? It means it could be a trap. So
Right, yeah.
you guys talking, I didn't really think about that initially. I just kind of went with my first instinct that wow, that line's really low. But could we see both? The public and sharps both kind of on the same side of this one with SMU. I don't know. That's I think the question that needs to be answered.
Yeah. All right, well, let's try to get let's try to identify.
Let me ask you one really
Go ahead.
quickly here. I hate to circle back around to that 5 versus 12 spot, but I just feel like we really need to talk about it here. Like I said, it's really split 50-50, but against the spread, last season the 5s went 0 for 4.
Yes, I think.
So I'm wondering what's going on here, especially with Utah in this spot. They're really questionable, and they're up 6 points on this spread. So I'm wondering what's going to go down with them. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that. Well, let's get all the lines. What's the line on West Virginia Buffalo, Dave Golikoff?
It is -4 for West Virginia, so it looks like
there you go.
Some people already perceiving that Buffalo could pull the upset.
Yeah, 10 years ago, that line would have been, I don't know, what would it have been, 10, 12, who knows? I mean, Buffalo has a fighting chance, but if they're only getting 4 points, is that worth a bet? It's not an automatic bet, in my opinion, right, guys? What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I don't think it's automatic, but it is interesting. I think though with the Stephen F. Austin matchups, probably the one that you're going to look at was the best underdog value. Is Wofford? Yeah, Wofford and Arkansas. That one's 7 in favor of Arkansas. I think maybe I'd be Arkansas. It does seem pretty good though. I think it could probably take care of Wofford at -7, but that one's a pretty tough line too. That one and the -4 for. That we were just talking about. Those are probably 2 pretty tough ones right there for Buffalo and West Virginia.
Look, maybe the value isn't huge, but if you take Wofford +7, Buffalo +4, and Stephen F. Austin +6 or 6.5, and then what's the other one? Northern Iowa and Wyoming.
7. Northern Iowa is 7, I believe.
All right, maybe if you take all 4 of those underdogs, you're covering at least 3. Which of those do you think is so? Are we in agreement that Stephen F. Austin is the most likely to cover out of those 3? Out of those 4?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
As a dog, I like Northern Iowa to cover.
Northern Iowa, really good bet, I think.
All right, and before we wrap this up, let's circle back to the 215s. What do you think is maybe the best 15 seed that might have betting value? Is it New Mexico State over Kansas, Belmont over Virginia, North Dakota State over Gonzaga, or Texas Southern over Arizona? What's the Arizona line, Dave?
Arizona is crazy, 23 points.
23 points. I mean, the main question is, are they motivated to win by that much of a margin? Texas Southern, even if they're down by 30, will be scrapping and fighting to the very end. Arizona, if they're up by 18, are they going to be scrapping and fighting to go up by 24?
Let me just throw this out to you, Pete.
Yeah.
Arizona beat Oregon by 28.
I know. I know. I would definitely not bet against them. And like I said,
Oregon's been getting waxed. I mean, they just got waxed last week too, right?
No, Oregon was killing it at the end of the year. They had 4 wins, straight up wins as an underdog at the end of the regular season, and in the conference tournament, they were playing great until they ran into that buzzsaw. So that's a tough one. I think that maybe it's just that in general, the 15s might have small value, but looking at each individual game, there's no individual game that's going to have big value. Maybe that's the way this works. I don't know. You're absolutely right, Dave Golikoff. The question is just a matter of motivation, I guess, right?
What about teasers?
Teasers, traditionally you're supposed to not do teasers ever in basketball because the odds that they offer aren't good enough. You certainly wouldn't want to do it in a game with a big spread like that. In a game like maybe Cincinnati-Purdue, a game with a close spread, with a low total, then it can be a different situation. But
I was thinking more for the 5-12s. I thought that's what you were going to say when you're talking about those dogs. Buffalo. I know it's teasing basketball. I mean,
the problem is you're usually just getting super crappy odds. It's almost never worth it to tease in basketball unless it's one of those specific games where it's a very low total and a competitive spread. And but even then, it's usually mathematically not worth it. All right, but all right. So Dave Golikoff, let's just get a final answer. Out of the 15 seeds, which is the one you think might have the best bet as an underdog, best value as an underdog?
The 2 15s.
Out of the 215s, yeah.
Yeah, I'm betting against Kansas, assuming everybody is even if they play. I mean, I can't see Cliff Alexander not playing, but could be one of those things where he's not 100%. I'm willing to take a shot with New Mexico State.
getting 11.5. That might be, yeah, like I said, I would not be surprised if that one closes lower. And then Jordan Sharp, what 15 seed do you think might have some value, betting value?
Yeah, I agree with Dave, but not to echo him. I think that New Mexico State at 11.5 is probably your best. But if you're looking at another one here, I think you guys are right. I am very high on Virginia, but 16.5 against a team like Belmont that's a pretty good scoring team. If they get hot shooting threes, they could easily cover that 16.5. So I think I would probably look at that. New Mexico State and Belmont is probably your best two bets for covering as a 15 seed.
All right. Well, I think that just about does it for our initial look at the 2015 NCAA tournament. Obviously, we're going to be covering this a ton more this week up until the first tip-off. Megan Rochester, Jordan Sharp, and Dave Golikoff, thanks so much for all your thoughts on this, and we'll talk to you all again very soon.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.